The 18th century, a period of time that historians would later crown as the Age of Elegance, or the Siècle des Lumières. To the outside world, this was the peak of human civilization, a world of towering silk wigs, intricate lace, and the soft glow of 10,000 beeswax candles reflecting off the hall of mirrors. But I want you to leave your illusions of clean streets and noble knights at the door. Forget the fairy tales you've seen in Hollywood movies. The real France of this era was something far more complex and far more terrifying. It was a volatile, explosive cocktail of expensive face powder and spilled blood, of brilliant scientific insights and an unimaginable, suffocating stench that gripped every city street. Make no mistake, in the year 1700, France was not just a country, it was the undisputed center of the universe's gravity. It was the superpower of the age. Its language was the tongue of kings from Moscow to Madrid. Its fashions dictated what was beautiful, and its armies dictated what was legal. There was a saying back then, when Versailles sneezes, all of Europe reaches for a handkerchief. Every whisper in the corridors of power here sent shockwaves across the Atlantic to the colonies of the New World and deep into the heart of the Orient. But beneath this glittering golden veneer, the foundations were already beginning to crack. The weight of absolute power was becoming too heavy for the crumbling shoulders of the monarchy. In this video, we aren't going to just list boring dates and recite dry treaties. Instead, we're going to peek behind the heavy velvet curtains of royal bedrooms, where the secret fates of entire continents were decided between whispers. We will walk through the mud-choked markets of Paris, where the rats were said to be larger than dogs and the air was thick with the scent of revolution. We will step into the smoke-filled coffee houses where dangerous new ideas were brewing, ideas that would eventually sharpen the blade of the guillotine and strip kings of their divine crowns. We are about to embark on a 50-year journey, a journey from the somber, ritualistic sunset of the great Louis XIV to a wild, decadent era where the power of human reason became more dangerous than any sword.
Versailles looks like elegance, but it was designed to control people, not to comfort them.
The year is 1701. Louis XIV, the Sun King, has sat upon the throne for nearly 60 years. He is no longer the vibrant young dancer who once performed as Apollo. He is an old man, a living monument, fading behind the gold-leafed walls of Versailles. But the gold is peeling. By this stage, the Sun King was a shadow of his former self. Did you know that Louis had lost almost all of his teeth to botched surgeries? His physicians had even shattered part of his jaw. Every meal became an ordeal, every sip of wine often spilling through his damaged sinus. Yet the king had to remain majestic. He sat there, encased in heavy silk, representing a power that was slowly rotting from within. Versailles itself had become a gilded prison. Louis designed it to keep his rivals so busy with petty etiquette that they had no time for rebellion. Thousands of aristocrats crowded into a palace that lacked even basic plumbing. The corridors smelled of expensive perfumes mixed with human waste. And yet, people fought like wolves for the privilege of being near him. Some waited years for the honor of simply holding his candle while he prepared for bed. It was a ritualized existence where a single frown from the monarch could end a family's fortune. But while the nobility gossiped, the world outside was screaming. The War of the Spanish Succession had turned into a black hole for the treasury. And then nature itself turned against the king. The winter of 1709 was so brutal that wine froze solid at the king's dinner table. Birds froze mid-flight. Across France, crops perished. The great famine struck. While the king sat in his heated chambers, millions were eating grass and grinding bark into flour. In Paris, for the first time, the people didn't just beg for food, they began to curse the name of the king.
After 1709, France didn't just lose food. It lost trust in the crown.
By 1715, the Sun King developed gangrene in his leg. He refused amputation, choosing to die as he had lived, in absolute control. When he finally drew his last breath on September 1st, there were no tears in the streets. Instead, an explosion of joy. His coffin had to be transported to Saint Denis at night, guarded by soldiers, to prevent a starving mob from tearing the royal corpse to pieces. The sun had finally set. With the king dead and his heir only 5 years old, power fell to Philippe d'Orléans, the regent. Philippe was the total opposite of the Sun King. He loved chemistry, black magic, and debauchery. He moved the court back to Paris, and the city exploded in a frantic celebration. This was the age of the Regency, a time of masked balls and absolute hedonism. People were tired of praying, they wanted to play. But there was one massive problem. The state was completely bankrupt. Enter John Law, a Scottish gambler, adventurer, and convicted murderer. He had a radical idea. Why rely on heavy gold coins when you can print paper? He convinced the regent to let him open a bank and found the Mississippi Company. He promised that the French colony of Louisiana was overflowing with gold and emeralds. It was the birth of the world's first great investment bubble. Law even created a new word that we still use today, millionaire. Suddenly, everyone in Paris was a trader. Rue Quincampoix became a madhouse. People sold their ancestral estates to buy Mississippi shares. A hunchback famously made a fortune just by letting people use his back as a desk to sign stock contracts. Servants became richer than their masters overnight. But there was a dark secret. Louisiana was a mosquito-infested swamp with no gold in sight. When the truth began to leak, the panic was catastrophic. By 1720, the bubble burst. People who were millionaires on Tuesday were beggars by Friday. The streets turned into war zones as thousands tried to trade their paper for gold at the bank. Law fled the country dressed as a woman to escape the lynch mob. France was left with a shattered economy and a deep, lasting hatred of banks that would haunt the country for 2 centuries.
France collapsed financially. But culturally, it pretended nothing had changed.
Let's step away from the gold for a moment and look at the reality of 1730s Paris. If you visited today, the first thing that would kill you is the smell. 600,000 people, thousands of horses, and 0 sewers. Garbage was thrown from windows. The Seine River, the city's main water source, was a soup of blood from slaughterhouses and chemicals from tanneries. The Cemetery of the Innocents was so packed with bodies that the stench of decay was said to turn milk sour in nearby houses. Hygiene was seen as a dangerous luxury. Even the nobility rarely bathed, fearing that water opened the pores to the plague. Instead, they used lead-based white powder and heavy perfumes. This lead literally ate away at their skin, causing sores that were hidden with patches, small black velvet stickers. These moushes became a fashion statement. And the hair? Women wore 3-foot-tall hairstyles held together with animal fat. They stayed in place for weeks, becoming nests for lice and even mice. Ladies carried golden lice scratchers just to survive their own fashion. As Louis XV grew up, he was called the Well-Beloved. He was handsome, but he was chronically bored. He feared death and hated politics. He spent his days hunting and his nights in private apartments trying to escape the suffocation of Versailles. He needed someone to manage the kingdom while he hid from it. And that someone was Jeanne Antoinette Poisson, better known as Madame de Pompadour. Pompadour was a commoner who became the most powerful woman in Europe. She was more than a mistress, she was a brilliant politician and cultural director. She founded the Sèvres porcelain factory and built the Petit Trianon. But while she curated the arts, the French Empire was crumbling. France lost Canada and India in the 7 Years' War. The people blamed her for the king's failures. Louis knew the end was coming. His famous phrase, "After us the flood," wasn't a joke, it was a prophecy. But while the monarchy rotted, the mind woke up. In the tobacco smoke of Café Procope, a revolution was brewing, not with guns, but with pens. Voltaire was mocking the church. Montesquieu was writing about the separation of powers. They realized that a king's power wasn't a gift from God, it was a contract with the people. This was the Enlightenment. Dangerous, illegal books were being printed in basements and smuggled across borders. Denis Diderot began the Encyclopedia, a daring attempt to collect all human knowledge and take it away from the priests. The state banned it, but the people read it. By 1750, the world was no longer the same. The French elite was playing with the fire of liberty without realizing it would soon burn their world down. France was a magnificent carriage racing into an abyss to the sound of an orchestra. We leave France in 1750, at the peak of its brilliance and on the doorstep of its collapse. The Sun King's legacy was spent, the money was gone, and the people were no longer afraid to think.
Which part of this chaotic era surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe, and remember, history repeats itself, especially for those who refuse to listen. Thank you for watching.